couple.
Okay,
1 second. There we go.
hold on. Okay, technical difficulties. Are we there now? Okay. Good morning. It is Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. This is a special meeting of the Jefferson Public Utility District Board of Commissioners. My name is Jeff Randall. It is 10 o'clock and I am the president of the board and I'm calling this meeting to order. I have a little announcement that I read each time. It says that Jefferson PUD will be offering both virtual online meetings as well as in-person meetings unless advance notice is provided. Online participant audio will be muted upon entry. Please unmute at the appropriate time to speak. And if you are calling in, use *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise a hand or to request to speak. Let's do a roll call to see that we have everyone. So Jeff Randall, President of the Board, Commissioner for District 1.
Kenneth Collins, Commissioner, District 2.
Dan Tupper, Commissioner for District 3.
All right, we have everyone present and accounted for today. On our agenda is a financial update. I believe that's going to be, is that everything that we're going to cover in today's meeting?
On the manager's report, I'll talk a little bit about why we rescheduled some things.
Okay, sounds good. So do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye, and we have an adopted agenda. So are we going to start with manager's report? Okay.
No public comment period.
I'll just ask, do we have any comments for things not on the agenda? Okay. Commissioners okay with allowing for comments not on the
Yes.
agenda? Please proceed. 3
I was
minutes.
wondering if there was going to be any discussion about the RCW 54-16-330 issue I brought up at the last meeting. You guys said that we should meet and have a discussion about it, but I haven't heard anything from anybody.
Okay, and just for myself and
Retail
everybody
broadband.
else, the RCW is referring to
Retail broadband.
retail broadband. Okay. And I don't think we have Joel in the
No, we
meeting
don't.
because he's actually at a funeral.
I can add that to the
Manager's
manager's
report.
report.
To the extent you can talk about it. Okay, thank you. And I can't remember if we were intending to pick that up again at our next regular meeting, which is kind of what we usually do, but we'll see what we can do to respond. Okay, Kevin, any other comments for things not on the agenda? Don't know if there's any hands, not seeing any in the room. Okay, Kevin, please proceed.
So originally this meeting was going to be broadband where we talked about our business plan. Because of the bid protest, we set that aside and we were going to discuss the bid protest for the fiber build out. But because of scheduling and some other things, we had to postpone that discussion. So I apologize for everyone who's here that wants us to talk about our broadband business plan and the broadband fiber bid questions. We do feel that we will have everything put together for the bid documentation for next Tuesday.
Okay.
We are going to propose a discussion at 3 o'clock. We'll do the special meeting and we'll send out notifications at that time. The business plan, we're looking at March timeframe. The actual meeting date we have in March is the 25th. We may look at changing that date a little earlier for the commission, but Annette will be reaching out and looking at, maybe coming up with a better date than that.
Okay, so just to summarize what you just said is for technical reasons and people reasons, we weren't able to have the broadband discussion
Right.
today and other reasons. Next Tuesday is a regular board meeting, which starts at 4, but it sounds like there's going to be an executive board special meeting beforehand or a different
What-
topic.
What
meeting?
we're proposing is the bid challenge would be addressed at 3 o'clock in a special meeting.
Okay, so that'd be a public meeting.
That would be a public meeting.
Okay.
It wouldn't be executive session. It would
Okay.
be a discussion just like this.
Okay.
To review that. And that Joel Paisner, our legal counsel, will be leading that discussion.
Okay, is that something that the board normally has to get involved with? I don't know that I've been involved in one where we've had a bid challenge before.
Different PUDs do it differently. On this one, we feel it's important to discuss it in an open board meeting with the board. So we're choosing to bring it to you at this time.
Okay.
So, and just for clarity, the meeting that was supposed to happen today is not going to happen until March 25th.
That is our next daytime regular scheduled meeting that we would have it at. We are gonna look at maybe trying to come up a little quicker on the agenda so that we can talk about the broadband business plan.
Let me ask this question, is the, you know, I realize it takes staff time to be prepared and have the right people in the room for the meeting discussion, but I guess from a board perspective, do we feel this issue is urgent enough that we'd like to have it as soon as possible, given our schedules, or do we prefer to wait until, you know, that rough time frame?
Well, obviously the bid protest is a component to the broadband business plan. So I get that we got to wait on that, but it's still another month beyond that seems a little excessive. I would rather we see that happen sooner, but
Yeah, if it can be done sooner, I think that that's desirable. But, you know, we have to recognize that staff has a lot on its collective plates.
Right. And I guess I would vote for the sooner too, provided that we're not rushing it and having a meeting to have a meeting. I think, you know, we need to feel prepared that you're presenting the relevant information so that we can understand and discuss it. But I think having these points in time of knowing where are we at on broadband, so that we as commissioners have a good feel for where we're at as an organization, I think it's important. So I would concur that waiting 6 weeks would not be desirable from my perspective either. If we can do it sooner, I would, you know, I will make an effort to working into my schedule. So
And that'll be reaching out. Hopefully we can get it. If worst comes to worst, maybe the second meeting in regular scheduled meeting in March, we could do it the hour before, but we'll.
in the first scheduled meeting in March.
The first schedule, today is the what?
It's March 5th, I think.
So in March 5th, we could maybe do it on that one. We'll look.
Okay.
We.
I guess what I'm saying too is we've kind of gone back and forth. It used to be the day where we'd have like 6 special meetings a month, you know, and it was like killing us. I would be, and I don't know if the other commissioners, I'm sensing they would also be okay to having, you know, its own special meeting at an earlier date.
And Annette will reach out to get everyone that has to be there. We'll send out dates, times, and
Yeah.
see what we can.
And I think there's enough substance to it that it probably needs its own meeting,
Yes.
frankly. Yeah. Shouldn't be squeezed into something else.
And as part of the discussions that we've been having with all of this, Leo's question on the RCWs, our authorities, Joel is prepared to do a small discussion. I don't know if it'll be at the next board meeting or not, but he will be able to discuss that and give you his legal opinion on the whys and hows of how we're proceeding.
Okay. And then of course, not everything happens in board meetings. And I know, Leo, that, you know, you can contact our staff, or if you have legal representation, you know, and are reaching out to our attorney, that's something that's available outside meetings too. So anyway. Okay. Is that the end of the manager's report, or do you have more?
That's the end of the manager's report.
Okay.
Unless
Any
there's questions.
questions, comments, discussions?
There's one hand raised.
Okay, let's start with that and then I'll come back to you, Leo. So it says Don McDaniel, but I
Mitchell Shook.
think we've had a major.
not
me.
This is Mitchell Shook here, if you can hear me there.
Yeah,
Hey, so I hadn't heard anything about the challenge. Can somebody describe just generally what that's related to? Is that going to delay our launching here? Because we're anxious to hook people up. I'm Mitchell Shook, by the way, Advanced Stream Internet Service Provider, excited to get going on this project.
okay. Thanks, Mitchell, for identifying yourself.
It will delay things approximately 2 weeks, but that's part of the bidding process. Is we have to work through it for state code.
Okay. And then just generally on the business plan, I just, I've been doing this for 26 years functioning. We kind of pioneered the concept of community owned broadband and I, more than anything want to see this project succeed. I spoke last time a little bit about the model, the business model, and we call this the all-in model where it's kind of something we've never seen before where we'll be competing with the network owner and operator. So it's unusual in that sense, but I think it is, cumbersome because it's sort of a disincentive for guys like me and Leo and other ISPs that I know that would love to come and help chop this wood. And, there's a lot that goes on to being an ISP and to, maybe it's like shooting fish in a barrel because these people just don't have service, but there's also the hand holding that goes on, to make it work. Every doorbell now and the Internet of Things, even printers and refrigerators and Rokus and Hulus and all that, goes over the internet. And that's where the internet service providers come in. I just want to really encourage the board to consider the business model if we're still thinking about it or talking about it. You're not going to get a lot of ISPs to come and support a project where they have to compete with somebody that has their customer list and sets their prices. Having a level playing field like the government builds roads, for example, or bring in but customers can pick and choose what car they drive. Now, I'm all for maybe some public level of service, like you can ride a bus. Maybe there should be a $10 rate that the PUD provides for lower income people, and I would support that and give them 5 or 10 megabits at $10 a month or something like a public transportation. But to go in there and provide gigabit and compete with your ISP partners is going to be cumbersome, and I think it lowers the likelihood of the success of your project. So just having done this and having pioneered this concept and operating in probably 30 cities across 3 states, it's a model we haven't seen before. I love the partners that we have in Will O'Donnell and Cody, and I think you have all the elements of success. It's just that one aspect of the business model, the all-in compete is just very, very unusual. And I think it's a disincentive for the success of the project. So I want to throw that out there to you. And if anybody wants to talk about the role of an ISP and all the hand holding that we do that goes on in people's homes and whether that's the appropriate role of government, I'd be happy to tell you what the life of an ISP is like. It's not, I think, what you imagine, rolling out 70 miles at union rate to help somebody fix their doorbell or their printer. But and competing with the private sector in this regard, the public-private partnership I value.
Mitchell, I'm gonna have to pause
Yep.
your last 3 minutes there, but can I
Okay, sorry about that.
yeah, that's okay. Just for the record, could I get your organization's name again?
Yeah, we are Advanced Stream.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay,
And
thank you.
thanks for your comment. I think we totally got the gist of it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
If you had we don't want to engage in debate, but if you had a little additional follow-up or question or whatever, please feel free.
Well, I'm this person also, I heard about this bid protest, it's kind of concerning that you went into business without having a business plan. So, you should have already had a plan. So I don't really see why this bid protest is a big concern, because you should have already known what you were getting into in the first place.
Okay, got your comment. And I'll just say that I think we have a business plan, but the business plan is ever evolving because it's a brand new business. The bid protest is about the project to build out this phase. We have very specific laws and procedures we have to follow. And for everybody involved, it sounds like the next regular board meeting is where we'll get an update from our attorney. And it sounds like that 3 o'clock meeting time, we expect to have that meeting be dedicated to the bid process and that protest. Okay. All right. If there's no other questions this time, realize that people still are wondering about things, but this is all we can cover right now. I'd like to proceed to the financial update part of the meeting. And Mike, I just want to say thank you for getting the PowerPoint out to the commissioners, even if it was just a little bit before the meeting. I was able to go through it and it was very well done. And I look forward to your presentation. And thanks for getting it to us ahead of time.
Yeah, I was trying to, with the schedule, sometimes with everybody's schedules, it's hard to, verify what information needs to be, we want to share what we don't want to share. Not that we don't want to share anything, but what we want to highlight in that particular meeting is what I was trying to get at. Ken's giving me the eye right now.
Well, when do you stop
Yeah, what?
counting the numbers and do you put them on the page?
Yeah, on the page
Yep.
and so it did take a little bit. Will was still trying to finish up, try to get me a couple things, but we didn't get it done. So we'll go ahead and get this shared and only because I was trying to get some pictures to also help show what we did, some
Right.
more stuff. So this is just our financial update. You know, we've been trying to do this every year, you know, kind of show you how we ended up for the previous year, remind of what the budget for the next year looks like. So that's kind of what we're going through today. Got to do the disclaimer here. Every time that the amounts shown for 23 year end are subject to change. Audit work is still being completed by Bollinger, Seegers, Gilmer, and Moss. They have until beginning of March to get everything done. We have to file our annual reports by the March 31st deadline, which is the RUS Form 7 for electric and the USDA or US Department of Agricultural Rural Development Forms 442 and 443 for water.
And just to pause there, is there any reason to believe we're going to have trouble meeting those deadlines? Does it seem like we're getting the resources from our auditors to
No.
help us with
Did
that?
not have any issues.
Fantastic.
They were here the second to last week of January doing on-site work. They're still working on a few things. Because of scheduling there again, we're gonna meet with them. Staff will meet with them beginning of March, kind of get where we're at on everything, double check, check in, do a soft close with them, tell what they can kind of give us. And then we'll get the report in March, share it with the commissioners. And then they'll come back out, I believe in May to do our single audit. And that's when they will actually present their findings to the board.
Okay, great. It can sound like nothing to other people, but it's like when we have trouble with this, it's just like the transmission doesn't work on your car. It's really bad.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's the timing and everything. So yeah, if we don't, and for the longest time, we did not file stuff properly, so we had to change. That's why we went to a third party auditor, was because we were not meeting deadlines. So
Yeah.
we went. Just 1 second. I'll take care of it for Paul real fast. So just going into kind of the year end summary, just so show everybody where we kind of ended up at. For electric, we were about $42.5 million in revenues, about 4.4 million for water. So altogether, we were just under $47 million across the board. The total cost of service, this is operating this business, taxes, depreciation, things like that. It was 38 million for electric, 4 million for water. So about to get all together, it was $42 million. So that gave us operating margins of about 4.5 for electric, just under 400,000 for water. So just on about 4.9 million for as a combined utility.
okay. And is it okay if we ask questions as we
Yeah.
go? It seems to me like that might be the most helpful.
Yeah, if the commissioners want to ask
Yeah.
questions while we go, that's
Questions on this one? Anybody?
Yeah, just I'll ask my usual question when it comes to cost of service. How this 38 million, does that account for the credit we got from BPA? How does BPA, that credit of about $3 million in 23? I don't know. I know it rolled over.
Yeah,
It
it was like
rolled
3
over,
million.
so I don't know the exact number,
Yeah.
but does this represent that in any way, shape, or form?
yes and no. I mean, yes, it does because we didn't have to pay that. That was a credit on the bill. So it was just less money that we didn't have to pay. But that total cost of service does include what we pay to BPA for our power bills.
So it's lower than
Yeah,
it would
it's
normally
lower.
be.
It's
3
not-
million lower.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not necessarily showing the credit. I mean, the credit was on our bills, but it wasn't money that we got back anywhere.
Yeah.
It just was a reduced bill.
Understood.
So, yes, it does. So then the non-operating margins was about 4 million and 476,000. So about 4.5 million in non-operating margins. Non-operating margins, that's our aid to construction. It's the grant funds. It's taxes, the property taxes, timber sales that we get from the state and the county.
And again, that same questions. So my recollection of accounting is you are debiting and crediting items so that you balance. Did that BPA rebate show up as a non-operating margin also?
No, because we did not, since it was a credit against the bill, it just reduced our bill. We did not
Wow.
record it as. So what, part of the reason why you're seeing is because we did record grant funds. And
Okay.
the question came up last time about why there was a difference between November and December's.
Right.
as part of the auditing, adjusting entries, they had me go ahead and defer some of we got 4.6 million from the state to help with our reconnect grant.
Okay,
And they had me defer, they made that as a deferred credit or
okay,
deferred debt. Yeah, it's a deferred credit for later, for when we actually start using those funds and start working on that project
okay.
a couple of years down the road.
So again, these numbers, a lot of times when they're millions of dollars off, it's because grant money is,
Grant money has either come
flowing
in
or
or, yep, and the,
expenses are flowing associated with it. Okay.
yeah, and the the non-operating margins will probably go up because we will record some of the 23 expenses that we're gonna get reimbursed in 24
Okay,
as 23 revenue. We're
Okay.
just waiting to have everything finalized and the auditors tell us
okay.
you need to make this adjusting.
So these
entry.
2023 numbers will still subject to change.
Yep, yeah,
Okay.
these are still that's why I always put the disclaimer out there. These are subject to change prior to once we get the final audit report and we file the year-end reports, then they're final.
Okay,
Up until that point, they're always subject to change.
okay.
So that's kind of where we ended up. So yeah, we ended up with, about 9.4 million in total margins. So.
Okay.
So here, just kind of getting onto the electric side, which does include, the broadband expenses, because we do report them as one entity. We keep them separated on the book so we can tell which one's which, but for reporting purposes, we do report them together. So it just shows, we budgeted for $46.8 million. We came in at $42.5 million. So we were down, just on about 4.3 million in revenues. Yes, Ken?
So your year-end summary for non-operating margins shows $4.5 million. The non-operating margins on the electric side,
Because I
1.7 million. Non-operating margins, the water side is a deficit of $250,000. So how did we get to the $4.5 million of non-operating margins in the summary without it showing collectively on the electric and the water side?
So the 1 point, I think I understand what you're saying. So let me try to explain it.
I think I understand what I'm saying.
Uh,
too, but I'm not
so
sure.
I don't always
The
understand.
first
what-
column is what we budgeted. So we were only budgeting for 1.7 million. The actuals is the second column, which is the 8.6. And I realize I'm now on the non-operating margins. I missed a 0 in the non-operating margins. It's supposed to be the 4 point. So we increased more. So we had almost $7 million more, brought in almost 7 million more than what we originally had budgeted. So, on this page here, the budget's in the first column, the actuals in the second column, and then the variances between the two. How much the actuals were either over or under the budgets. So it's a 8.6 million in electric and then 8.75 or 875 in water is what the actual ones were. So when those two added together make up the 9 million, the 9.4 million. And so the first column on each one of these is the budget amounts and not the actuals. So we're just looking at electric here.
So did that answer your question?
Did that answer?
Other than missing, one of the non-operating margins under actuals, as you said, is missing a 0. So it's 4 point something million.
It should be 4,083,571.
Okay, it's missing a 0, 4083. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay. So that's just showing, kind of where the actuals ended up to the budget for electric, so of course we were under on revenues, but we were, pretty far underneath the total cost of service, which that would show where that BPA money, those BPA credits came in, that played into that.
Which row are you talking about now again?
The total cost of service.
Okay.
Where we were $9.5 million actuals to budget,
Under.
under
Okay.
budget.
Got it.
Part of that, we didn't have as many expenses, knock on wood. It was
Right.
pretty quiet for outages in 23. We didn't have a lot of the big
Yeah, now you really got to knock on wood.
Yeah.
You don't need more
So
outages.
that, helped save us on things, and that then allowed us to make more in the operating margins, 5.2 over budget. And then we were 1.7 on the non-operating margins, which we were then, $7 million over on total margins for electric.
Okay.
This is the same thing for water. We were about 483,000 under budget on revenues. We were about 526 under the total cost of service, gave us about 43,000 over on the operating margins. We were under on the non-operating margins, which left us about 200,000 lower than what we thought on total margins. There again, the total cost revenues, weather kind of played a part in that. Didn't have the hot, dry summers, people using more water, but we were able to, reduce some of our costs on other things. So we didn't spend as much money as we budgeted for. And then just some of the non-operating, some of the, it's always hard to guess what we're going to collect, with property taxes, timber sales, aid to construction, things like that. It's hard to.
Questions
Yeah.
on water?
Well, I guess I'll ask a question again on the, how we calculate, for budget purposes, the revenues. On the electric and on the water both, it seems like we budgeted about 9 or 10% higher than what actuals ended up being. Is that a normal type of a thing? Have we seen that in the past, or that gap between the actuals and the budget?
It depends
Is it
year
a
to
trend?
year.
I guess I would ask, is this a trend? Because it's a negative more than it's a positive in my eyes.
A couple of years ago, we were almost right on budget. We were within, usually, target is to try to be, plus or minus 5%. I did last year when I budgeted for 23 because of our different tier rates and stuff. When I was taking an average of the tiers, I included the higher tiers, which we don't normally hit all the time. And so that bumped the revenues up a little bit higher. When I did the 24 ones, I knocked out those higher tiers because we don't hit them that often. So I think this is kind of just a one-off, and weather does play a part in it. We try to neutralize it for weather, normalize it for weather patterns, but
Yeah, because of the gap, this particular go around, in the past, it didn't register with me. So I'm thinking that this is more of an anomaly. But the reason I ask is because we are in the middle of a rate case study. This is a kind of a concern to me, is how the, FCS will look at, what we're doing and projecting revenues.
they will look at the actuals. They won't look at the budget stuff. They will only look at the actuals.
Okay.
They'll look at the history of the actuals, not the budget. They'll use like maybe the 24 budget but then a little bit, but they'll use more historical numbers to help project out.
Thank you.
Please continue.
So this is just kind of, I've done this before, just going over for the commissioners, the different types of margins that we have. We have the operating margins, which that's what they are, just takes our operating revenues minus the total cost of service. That's what that's what we have left after for the money we make and the money we spend out for doing what we make. So, and then we have the non-operating margins, which is your contribution and aid to construction, property taxes, timber sales, interest income, and then the grant funds is where those come in. And then just what we use our margins for, because we've had discussions on this in the past, just wanted to kind of reiterate again what we use those for. It's principal payments on our long-term debt. It's reinvested into the utility through construction work in progress, things like that, material inventory, and then cash reserves to build up our cash reserves. So talking about cash reserves, threw this in a couple of years ago, last year and stuff, and just kind of showing where and how over the last 5 years, how our cash has changed. We have gone down, used a lot of cash over the last 4 years. This year, just partially because of the grant money, getting the money from RUS for our grant or for our loan for the Auto Street building and AMI project. We did add 8.8 million back to the bank. So it's the first time that we've added money back into the bank, into the reserve. So just showing where and how we spend money year to year and how things can change year to year on where and how we spend.
So on the reserves, I mean, listen to what you just said. How did that equate out in our risk management and financial plan as far as meeting our 90 days cash on hand? Where are we at? You know, that sort of equation.
We're about right on where we need to be at the 90 days. I mean, because we do have, and this is, one of those controversial areas, is the line of credit. We do that per our policy can be included in the 9, but even with the $15 million for 90 days, we're right about that. I mean, there is restricted cash in there, but even with that, it's very little anymore.
So what's the rough unrestricted cash then currently?
It's, I want to say around like 12 million.
Okay, that's way better.
Yeah.
Again, I realize we have these big projects and all of a sudden money can disappear fast for a
Yeah.
while we're waiting for reimbursement to happen, but that feels a whole lot better than 3 or 4 or 6 or whatever we've been at.
Well, again, it's
And
a
that fig-
reminder. Oh, sorry, Ken, go ahead.
That figure does not include our line of credit.
That does not include our line of credit. That is
Good.
money in the bank.
Yay.
I think it's important as we go into the rate case, and that sort of thing, that the public understands our policies. And that is a policy we have, is to carry the 90 days cash on hand, which is basically 25% of our overall budget. So if we're, 52,000 or 52 million, excuse me, $52 million, that tells you where you should be at 13 million is about what you should have in cash on hand. Because I'm a proponent of not using, I know where the way it's written in there, we can use that, but I would rather we had the cash on hand than to rely on borrowing more money, short term or not, that we have the full 90 days in cash.
Yeah.
So if people wonder where the rates are going, that's part of where it's going, is to keep us with that reserve.
Have a healthy savings account. Okay.
All right. And then of course, because we are an RUS borrower, we do have certain requirements that we do have to meet for ratios. Tier being one of them, which is the times in interest earned, and then debt service coverage or DSC. And so just kind of comparing, 22 with 23, and then kind of where we were, for 24 budget, kind of seeing where everything falls out. So you can kind of see year to year how things can change and it can affect our ratios, but we're well within above what the norms of what we need to be, which is 1.25 and 1.11.
Yeah. I guess again, we don't want to keep saying it over and over again, but with all these numbers, if we didn't have that BPA credit, it would be a drastically different picture. And I think when we look at snow in the mountains and everything else, they're still giving us some credits now in the months as we're
It's
going
about
ahead.
half. 2024 will be half of what it was in
Yeah,
23.
but I think I think we have to be prepared. That is not going to be an ongoing situation. This is like a one-time gift, really, that
Well,
we're getting.
And also the tier and the DSC are a little bit higher because of the grant funds coming in, because
Mhm.
I didn't put this in here, but I found something talking to our auditors with BSGM, is there's actually GASB, which is Government Accounting Standards Board,
Mhm.
34, which actually states how we have to record those at being a government agency,
Mhm.
where everybody else does not have to record them. Well, the state of Washington makes you do it, but most other utilities do not have to record those as non-operating margins. In the state of Washington, because they want the tax money partially, and they say you're going to follow GASB because you're a government agency. We have to record those as revenues and not offset our costs.
Okay.
So
So it's artificially pumping up the,
it's artificially pumping
Revenues
up the
again.
tier and the debt service coverage,
Yeah.
the bottom line number. So
yeah. And again, it was effort to put out to get those grants and things.
Yeah,
So it's,
so-
it's recognizing good effort, but
yeah. So just as we go in for the next few years, as we keep getting that grant money, tier and debt service coverage will be up there. So in a couple of years, when we're done getting the grant funds, they'll come back down.
Mhm.
So you'll see a change when we're done getting that grant money.
And sometimes the comment is made that, gee whiz, your tier's so high, why aren't you cutting your rates? And it doesn't reflect an overall health of the normal business model. It's reflecting an artificially pushing it up because we've been successful on grants or
Grants.
we've had BPA rebates or whatever. Those are
Yep.
not
It's not being in there.
continuing things to rely on as a business.
Yep.
It's a public business. Okay.
So.
Any questions on this slide? Okay.
And then of course, we have been taking on a little bit more new debt. And just, there's been a lot of discussions over the last couple of years where debt is, and as Commissioner Tupper was saying, we are getting ready to go into the rate study. There's always that question is whether we rate finance things or we debt finance things. So just kind of giving an idea of where we're at on long-term debt. So this is just looking at the electric and broadband long-term debt. The original RUS loan will be paid off in 2041. It's 85.5 million right now. The new RUS loan is going to be paid off in 2049. We've drawn down $4.5 million. We still got about, I think it's 900,000 out there that we can do. We're waiting to get a few more AMI projects done, costs associated with the AMI project before we draw down any more funds from that. And then, of course, we have the new Public Works broadband loan for the downtown business fiber expansion. Right now, we've only drawn 476 off of that one. So that one, right now, with the money we've drawn, will be paid off in 2037.
So, and I'll hone in on that one, looking forward to the broadband meeting. That's a question I will want some clarification and definition on, is how much of that money have we accessed of that loan? And do we have the revenue to cover the debt payment on that loan moving forward in 2024, 2025, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's something I'll expect to hear about at the broadband meeting.
Okay. Any other questions on this one?
No, but my math says that we're paying down that big loan, that
Mhm.
RUS loan, about 5 million a year in principal.
Yeah.
And we're making a payment of like 6 million a year. So, even though we still are 90 million in debt, it's a lot better than being 115 million in debt, which is where we were when we started. So we're on a, in spite of the fact that we've taken on some new loans at times, we're still on a trajectory of working it down, which is where I like to see us going.
Yeah, that's good news, but the bad news is the general manager reminded us a meeting ago, we have $130 million in
Yeah.
projects in 8 years we
Yeah.
got to be thinking about. So
It's
that 80 million number is going to change.
It's sobering. That list is very sobering.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So the next thing is doing same thing with the water on our long-term debt. All the loans that we have, we have about 7 million, which doesn't seem a lot, but there's a lot of different ones. But we do have a few that will be paid off here in the next couple of years with them. We just took out the new one for Shine Plat. We'll get money back in for that one to help pay for that one. The Closine water tank, almost $2 million on that one. It's 2041. So we do have some long-term, longer ones on that one, but we got some ones that will be paid off here short-term as well. So, and I don't have it here, to show kind of where we are, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I did look at that to kind of get us an idea, and most of it's within that about 20 years or so. And that's going back to the RUS loan. That will get that one paid off in the 20 years or
Okay.
so.
Questions on this one? Okay, please proceed.
All right. So there it goes. Was a delay. So just kind of like to show some pictures of the different projects and things that we completed in the previous year. We added 16 new employees. I have 12 pictures here.
Could you call those people out? Because I don't recognize everybody. Maybe like just start on the whoever
now
knows everybody.
I started adding the names in them, and I did not add the names.
Oh, I see customer service. I see IT. I see a new assistant
Bunch of
general
crew
manager. I
guys.
see lineman. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I see a broadband
the top
specialist.
row is lineman. I want to say it's Keith. And I don't remember who.
That's okay.
I can't put names, but I can recognize most of the faces.
I mean,
This is Jackson.
There's
He's
a lot of
one our
hats
new
and
IT.
beards and sunglasses, so sometimes it's hard to, and hoodies, sometimes it's hard to know who's under
Well,
the
these
hood.
are all either crew or substation guys on the top row, and the one in the hard hat there. Jackson and Kyle, those are new broadband.
Okay.
Sarah and Kelsey are new customer service reps.
Okay.
Ryan is our new IT support tech, and then we have Joy, who is our new assistant general manager. We're missing our network engineer for broadband, an accounting associate, Morgan, who helps with AP and payroll, and then 2 more linemen.
It'd be nice to have photos and names in the lobby.
And I know that we update that employee list with photos every once in a while. That's really nice for the commissioners to have too, so we can kind of quickly.
Well, I know the general manager will have an organizational chart for us too with all those names.
Of course,
At some point.
of course.
Pictures.
Might have to spread the 2 pages, pretty soon.
So Josh, you had something to add to that?
Yeah, I can give you their names if you want from left to right. So Keith Halsey, Kevin Konopowski, Ted Lewis, Jesse Bridges, Brandon's Simph, and it would be Cole Walker.
Cool.
Thank
Well,
you, Josh.
So
Yep.
glad we got more hands to help solve problems out there, Josh.
Absolutely. Great guys.
Okay, Mike.
Okay, so yeah, so I was trying to get some projects, but we had people out sick yesterday, didn't have the photos, so we don't have any pictures of projects to show where we spent our money in 23.
It's all right.
So we're gonna look at what's ahead in 24. So just as a reminder, we passed the budget, in October, so this is just kind of showing again where we're at as we start 24 with the budget, 48.6 million in revenues for electric, 4.9 million in water, 130,000 in broadband. Overall, that's $53.7 million as a combined utility. $49 million in total cost of service as a combined, 4.6 in operating margins, and then about $5 million in non-operating margins. Of course, that's the one that can change drastically one way or the other, depending on where we have everything. So we're looking, hopefully bringing in about $9.7 million next year.
Okay, and I realize I forgot to ask a question, so I apologize. This is a couple slides back, but on the slide where you've got water long-term debt, you had the LUD number 15 Beckett Point large on-site septic system. That debt of 100 grand a year we're paying on that. It looks like ends at the end of 2025. I can't remember what the annual budget for kind of the sewer side of things is. And when I saw that debt was going to be retired, it made me wonder about this issue of sewerage rates that we've been charging and what percentage of our budget that payment is roughly.
Well, and there again.
That
because
might
it-
ease the pressure a little bit on
Well,
the
because it's
rates.
a LUD, it's a local utility district.
Mhm.
The people are assessed and they pay towards that loan.
So it's not built into our rates.
It's not built into our rates. The only
They're
one.
paying it on their property taxes.
Yep.
And we're just the bank. We're
just the-
collecting
yep,
it.
We
Okay.
collect it and make it.
Fine, no help there. Sorry. Okay, move on.
Yeah, so so we have LUD 14, we have 2 different loans for LUD 14, which
Okay.
is taken over Maristone. Those are both will be paid off within the next couple of years, but those are assessed values.
Yep. Yep.
So
So good news for them. Their property taxes will be, it's a
it's
little
assessed,
less.
well, and we
It's a little
actually
less.
now, but since we're our own treasurer,
Yeah.
we took over billing those LUDs.
Okay,
The county treasurer used to bill those out.
interesting.
Now that we took all that in, we had to bill.
Okay.
So we had to rush around and,
You increased
Figure out.
you increased your workload. Congratulations.
Yep. yeah, the good and the bad of taking stuff back.
Yeah.
It made it somewhat easier because I didn't have to write a check to the county treasurer.
Yeah, so. So just a reminder, the budget passing, a few months ago. So just as we get into the new year, kind of just a quick reminder of what we've budgeted and where we're at on things. So,
Okay.
and then here's our capital budget. This doesn't include all the projects that were discussed last week at the meeting. For electric, we still working on a lot of that, but we still got the $15 million in broadband that we're going to try to complete this year. Most of that's grant related projects. We still got 5.7 million, which is about what our depreciation is in electric. What we depreciate is what we put back in on a regular basis. Water, there's still some questions on projects, but roughly we got 1.4 million in projects there that we could do.
Mm-hmm.
There's questions on whether that we got approval for a $1.1 million loan to do some stuff out on the coil, whether we're still going to move forward with it or not. There is
Yeah.
still up there. Fleet, 465, got to replace some vehicles, get some new vehicles for people.
Mm-hmm.
Just miscellaneous capital stuff, IT things, tools, things like that we have to capitalize. It's 380,000. And then just doing our building and yard improvements, it's about 227,000.
Right. And I realize that things happen with weather and, you know, staffing and all sorts of things on getting projects done. I'm kind of wondering, do we feel like we've gotten adjusted to the new reality on how long it takes to get materials, whatever those materials are? Or are we still trying to adjust to what that reality is and it keeps changing under us and affecting our ability to complete projects?
No, go ahead.
Material is an odd thing. We, for example, fiber right now is, the lead times are come back down more realistic. So it's, before everything was just a long lead time. Now there is things that are normal, but we also, and this is just an example, last month we got transformers that we ordered 2 years ago.
Mhm.
They showed up on our dock. So even though they say some things are getting better, there's still a lot of items that are very long lead times. And the sad part for our PUD, some of the things we need, the substation equipment.
Yeah.
Have remained out there for a long time. Fiber, some of the stuff we're working on now, though, those lead times have come down. They're not where they were, but they're reasonable.
Okay. Thank you for the little mini report. Any questions on this one? All right, keep going, Mike.
All right. So then the next thing is just talking about the shared cost allocations for 2024. As we go in, you know, getting broadband built back up, we haven't really allocated a whole lot of cost to broadband. So in 24, we're really going to start pushing. So this is just kind of calculating how we're going to share those costs amongst the three utilities. And I'll show you here in a minute kind of what we're talking about. So 86% of shared costs are going to go to electric, 7% will be charged to water, and 7% of everything will be charged to broadband to come up. So this is just kind of showing the commissioners how I came up with the numbers on how to allocate everything.
So the question on how you determine the percentage of share, because obviously about a quarter of our customers are also our water customers of the 20,000 customers we have on the electric side, but we have zero, well, I should say zero. I'll let staff tell me what the broadband number is, why we're using 7% on broadband as a shared cost.
So I did not, because we don't have as many customers, it's hard to do it. I based it off of the budget of revenues, expenses, and margins is how that came up.
Yeah.
Because it has to be justifiable. I have to be able to answer to auditors and to the board what is justifiable to as a number. So that's why there's two different allocations. I based it on all three, the revenues, expenses, and margins. And then I based it just on the expenses and the margins, because electric revenues, you take those out of even the expenses, you know, they get pretty high. So how do you and then I took the average of the two allocation percentages.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of a judgment call, but you have to base your judgment on something.
Because
Yeah.
again, I'm just looking at how the public would view this, you know, are we subsidizing? Is one line of business subsidizing another, and why?
So based
And-
on this information, I would justifiably say, no, we are not. But these are justifiable numbers of saying, now they are budgeted, you know, as we get billed in, because in the past we have used meters, both electric meters, water meters, and revenues, and kind of that's how we used to have a 90-10 split. So we've done different things as we continue building out the broadband, getting some more data, getting to know the number of connections. Then these numbers, they do get reviewed almost every year. These shared cost allocations, they do get reviewed, not necessarily during budget time, but by the end of the year when we have almost a full year's worth of data. We do review these come September, October on how to split them. So
And I would restate that, or I'd state it my own way, as our intent is to have each line of business kind of stand on its own.
yes,
Given that, you know, water and sewer are kind of merged because, you know, of how sewer is so small right now. And the clear subsidy that we're giving is we have that property tax, which is discretionary for how we apply that. And we're applying most of that to broadband and I think some to water, right?
we are. Yeah,
Yeah.
because with the property taxes, that is the one there are restrictions on how that can be used.
Right. So I think, you know, when it comes to subsidy, it's like, when can you ever get down to like the absolute penny that there is no subsidy, but our intent is for them to stand on their own.
Yep, the intent is, so it's just how do we, yeah, and I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next slide because this we'll talk.
Okay.
So. This is the slide I've started using for Kevin for the Skittles to show the Skittles by the colors.
Skittles shall not mix. It
Yep.
shall say segregated.
Yeah, so when we talk about shared costs, these are some of the examples, the building maintenance, office supplies, utilities, and other related expenses like that, the administrative and general expenses, and then customer service related expenses. That's when we're talking about cost shared allocations, we're talking about, these are the costs that we're sharing between the different utilities and who should pay what portion of the costs. So this is just that reference back to the other slide saying it to show what we do, so.
Yeah. And as a Jerry Maguire fan, I love this slide.
I have to admit, I did there was a CFC, the Cooperative Financial Corporation. In my management internship program training, they had a debt equity, and this is one of the slides from them. They made it smaller, but because they were showing debt versus equity, and they showed this, so.
You better be careful. He might be telling you had me at hello.
So,
Yeah, different part of the movie. This is desperation time.
yeah, this is so that's really the financial update that we had. Unless there's any other questions or anything, or we keep trying to do these quarterly, just.
So this is,
so-
and this is our quarterly meeting, and that's the idea behind this. Okay,
Yep, that's
cool.
what I do.
Cool.
So if there is, next quarter when we do throw this together, there's something else the commissioners would like to see in there.
Sure.
We can, it goes back to what, my statement before, trying to figure out what we need to say, what should we show
Right.
and without showing too much.
Right.
Cause I could go into a long drawn
Sure.
out slide. And
So again, I think where we are now is we are looking back on 2023. How did it go? How did it go compared to what we thought it would do? And then we're kind of looking ahead to here's how we've budgeted for 2024. Get ready. We're rolling into 2024. So this is the point. in time
Yep,
we're
this
at.
is a point in time.
Reflecting back and looking ahead.
Yep, and then we'll go forward kind of where we're at
Okay.
going along in 24, and then
Okay.
it'll be budget season. We'll start talking about the budget season.
Along the lines, if you had us at hello, I appreciate everything you had here today, Mike, and your ability to answer the questions that we had for you. So.
And making it as, non-accounty as possible, as approachable as possible so we can understand it. Because budgeting is this huge tool that if the commission and the public doesn't understand it, it's like one of the major tools that we have to measure and
Yeah,
manage the organization and our success. So I thank you for trying to make it as transparent as you can to us, more feeble-minded people when it comes to numbers. Okay, anybody else?
Thank you.
Okay.
Again, thank you for making that available ahead of
Yeah.
time.
yeah, and
for us to look at.
I'll send it to Will, since
Yeah, fix that number.
I'll fix that number and we'll
Before it
send it.
goes on the website. Yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't look good.
No, we'll fix that number and we'll get it posted to the website too.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the public on this? I guess, so in thinking about the year ahead, the one thing that I keep wondering about is snowpack, and I'm glad that the Cascades are having a better snowpack than the Olympics. But it's concerning that this is where our energy, ultimately, most of it comes from, is the reservoir of snow we have in the mountains, and it's not good this year. And the other thing that concerns me is that all my flowers are coming up, and they were starting to come up at the end of February. And usually what that means to me is this could be a bad fire season. This could be a bad summer smoke season so anyway, just some cause for concern from
Piece of
mine.
information on Energy Northwest on their uprate to, they were going to uprate by, I forget, was it 70 or 120 megawatts?
It's like 150 megawatts, 120 megawatts.
You know what the
something like
schedule on
that.
that was? When will that be happening? Because
I can't-
that could conceivably offset some of the snowpack issue.
Yeah, it's not going to happen this year.
Okay.
It's in a couple of years. They're getting ready for it. It's going to be a big effort.
Or maybe it was 170 megawatts. Now that
it's-
I start to think.
Yeah,
about it.
it's gonna be helpful, but they have a lot to do to make it happen. But yeah, I'd have to look back at my notes.
Was just curious if you had it
Yeah,
on the top of your head
If
when
you
that
want,
was
I'll
gonna,
see if I
no,
can
not
pull it
that
up
critical.
For the next meeting, but
But
yeah.
since we're talking about capacity and.
Yeah, it's a big enough project when they start it, we're gonna know, because they're gonna be talking about it a lot. They're still just trying to have their plans ready for it to be as smooth as possible. And the last time they did something, it was kind of a routine maintenance thing. They had a radiological issue and they had some bad things happen the last time they did some minor maintenance. So I think the staff is pretty worried about the whole uprate thing right now, because it's a major, you're almost disemboweling your.
Yeah, I don't
plant,
think that
and then
was,
you're
I don't
putting
think
it
that
back
was
together.
a minor maintenance. They had 1,100 off-site people on site to do the work. So
Right.
you're
Anything
gonna
there is-
you're gonna increase the odds of something happening.
Yeah,
so.
anytime they do something, it's always significant. Okay, well, if we're done, then we're done. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, Mike. Again, when I'm involved with other organizations and we're talking about money, sometimes I share what we do, because I just really appreciate how we have these touch points on the budget throughout the year, and it makes August and September and October so much easier, because it doesn't feel like it's a surprise. It feels like you've been keeping us in the loop the whole year long. So keep it up, and thank you and your team for everybody who
I
pulls it
guess
together.
one last question. That's a bit of an update on the FCS rate study. Where are we in that process? Just because we had some 24 numbers in this, so.
So, well, the rate study won't affect anything with 24 because it will probably take most of 24 to get it done.
No, but they'll need this information. to
Yeah,
do
they'll
the
need
rate
this
study.
information. Right now we're in the information gatherings. They've sent me a list of information that they need gathered up from the PUD, so they can start doing their modeling and everything. So we're still in that gathering information phase. so.
Okay, and since Dan brought it up, I'll follow up. So we've got that FCS thing on the capacity charge, and what I remember last time was the part of SCS who was working on that, we weren't getting they were busy and we weren't getting a response. Is there any update from them? Have we made contact with them and have any sort of timeline on when we're going to get that info so we can start acting on it?
We have some preliminary stuff from Gordon. He's the one who gave the presentation to the board. We're still waiting for the technical paper.
Okay,
We don't know if, we don't think it'll be on the board meeting on the 19th
okay,
or 20th, I think. But we're trying. It'll probably be the following board meeting. But
Okay.
as soon as we get the technical paper and stuff, we'll get it out to the board. and
Okay.
move it forward.
good.
And these are all components that we need to get in place or somewhat have a handle on before July will be our early touch, but by August, when we get into budget for 25, even the broadband part of things, the sooner we get that kind of determined and figured out, the better off it'll be for budget process in late July, early August.
Right. Okay, if there's nothing else, I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and have a lovely sunny day out there.